Welcome to Best of the Best, the series where I look at my personal favourite matches from the best superstars in pro wrestling history. The wrestlers in this series get selected by my supporters on Patreon, and for episode 5 we have got none other than the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. This is going to be tricky. HBK's had so many great matches that I'm going to struggle picking my all-time favourites, but I'm going to try my best to narrow it down for this video, and I hope you guys add more suggestions in the comments. The purpose of this series is to give newcomers a great starting point when researching great matches from superstars of the past. So again, let's try to build a great comment section filled with additional matches for new fans to check out. These matches are in no particular order, these are all my personal selections, so don't get all upset if your favourites don't make the cut, and yeah, let's get started. I've put Shawn vs Jeff Jarrett at In Your House 2 first on this video because I feel this is a great introductory match that shows a new viewer what HBK was all about. Both men worked extremely hard in this one, and you can see certain spots were carefully planned out in advance for maximum effect. You can see Shawn's athleticism along with that flamboyance and showmanship that Vince McMahon wouldn't shut up about, and the amount of confidence that comes through in this match, particularly from Michaels, is something rarely seen in a wrestling match, especially when you consider the more risky offense that Shawn was known for back then. You'll see a cocky babyface Shawn Michaels right here that knows full well how good he is. He definitely hams it up in this one, but it's also undeniable just how well he performs inside the ring. Full credit to Jeff Jarrett too. Double J played off Michaels extremely well in this match, and he worked equally as hard when it came to the bell-to-bell action. The first ever Hell in a Cell match at In Your House Bad Blood. D-Generation X is in its infancy here as HBK enters this new steel structure against The Undertaker. The winner of the match gets a WWF title shot at Survivor Series 97. I've talked about this match so many times, but it's also a match that I could never get tired of bringing up, and that's because both Michaels and The Undertaker truly set the tone for future Hell in a Cell matches by making the cell itself seem even more intimidating than what it already was. Shawn was a caged animal, riddled with anxiety and desperate to escape. He quickly understands he has to fight back in order to survive, and when he does eventually go on offense, he's not afraid to get down and dirty. The story told here is brilliant, with Shawn gaining his confidence the longer the match goes on, yet he still tries to escape when he gets the chance to do so. This turns out to be a huge mistake though, and it's only thanks to a ghost from Undertaker's past coming back to haunt the Phenom that Shawn was able to win this excellent and gripping main event match. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard were synonymous with the NWA and Jim Crockett promotions. The Rockers found early success in Vern Gagne's AWA, so seeing these two teams lock it up at a WWF Madison Square Garden show in early 1989 is quite remarkable. Not only that, it's a fantastic, well-balanced tag team match that showcases the fundamentals of tag team wrestling in a near-perfect manner. Both Marty and Shawn said they grew as performers thanks to their matches against the Brainbusters. Their understanding of tag team wrestling grew exponentially thanks to these early tag team matches against Arn and Tully. And you get to see one of those lessons in tag team wrestling through this match right here, and it's also available on YouTube to watch in its entirety. You hear it quite a lot, folks saying the art of tag team wrestling's dead, or at least saying tag team wrestling used to be better in the past. While I personally think there's some great tag team wrestling going on in modern times, you do kind of watch this one back and realise that things were a lot more logical in the past, and applying that basic logic makes for some incredible moments that we rarely see nowadays. The Rockers' hot tag is built up incredibly well, the Brainbusters use underhanded tactics in a masterful way, everything's super smooth and everything's on point. Quite possibly my favourite Rockers tag team match of all time. Some people like it, some people hate it. I happen to really like Bret vs Shawn at WrestleMania 12, and I also think it's a match newcomers to HBK should check out because it includes his big crowning moment. Shawn only won the WWF title 3 times, and those title wins happened in 1996 and 1997. That's a very small window of time to establish yourself as one of the all-time great champions, and while Michaels may not be considered a legendary wrestling champion, it's still worth going back and seeing him lift the winged eagle for the first time in his career. This match also serves as the beginning of Shawn's long rivalry with the Hitman Bret Hart. The two had wrestled each other on pay-per-view before, but this match kickstarted something way more personal. You do need to dedicate over an hour of your time to watch it. There are moments when the match slows down as the men pace themselves, but I still recommend it due to its historical significance. Plus, Shawn's entrance is absolutely brilliant. HBK took time away from the ring in 1998 and many thought his career was over. Personally, Shawn wasn't doing too well either, and the idea of Shawn making a comeback seemed less and less likely as the years went on. Shawn did come back in 2002 though, after cleaning up his act and finding peace within himself through Christianity, and his comeback match was against none other than old friend Triple H. The match was booked as a street fight, a common safety net that's put up for legends of the past just in case they aren't as athletic or generally as able as they once were. But it was almost like Shawn had never left as he and Triple H put on an all-timer that was highly entertaining and, at times, nerve-wracking. Triple H focused his attacks on Shawn's surgically repaired back. Some of the spots looked absolutely brutal as it appeared Hunter was trying his best to cripple his former best friend, but Hunter promised Shawn's family beforehand that he'd take good care of him out there, and that's exactly what he did, proving that even the most horrific looking bumps can be done safely when dealing with top class professionals. Michaels jumped off ladders, he put Hunter through tables, we saw the old HBK come back with his flying forearm, elbow drop and sweet chin music. For fans of Shawn Michaels, it couldn't have gone any better. And for those who had never seen an HBK match before, well, they quickly became fans of the Showstopper when SummerSlam 2002 came to an end. This is more of a personal choice really, and I know others don't rank this match very highly, but man, it's a real physical showdown that shows us how far Shawn had come since his 2002 comeback. HBK's rivalry with Hunter continued on after SummerSlam. It stopped and started up again a few times due to Hunter defending his world belt against other challengers. Shawn got a shot at Hunter's championship at the 2004 Royal Rumble, and this one was contested as a last man standing encounter. And it's a bloodbath, an absolute bloodbath that neither man could win. The finish is what annoyed people about the match. Shawn hit sweet chin music and Hunter's out cold, but Shawn can't stand up after performing his finisher and the match ends in a draw. It's a finish that keeps the belt on Hunter even though technically he didn't win, but don't let the ending ruin a near 25-minute all-out fight that's extremely gripping from bell to bell. This is a bout I put on randomly sometimes just when I find myself wanting to watch a Shawn Michaels match. I do feel people judge it unfairly due to the finish, so if you get the time, do check this one out and make your own mind up about it. Shawn's return match at SummerSlam 2002 was a street fight, a brawl where anything goes. At WrestleMania the following year, Shawn had his first real one-on-one encounter on pay-per-view that was going to include nothing but pure bell-to-bell in-ring action without any gimmicks or any safety nets. And both Shawn and his opponent Chris Jericho delivered in spades. As the sun begins to set in Seattle, HBK and Y2J bring fans on a roller coaster ride. The chemistry Shawn and Chris had with each other was absolutely undeniable, and it's no wonder this rivalry was revisited in 2008. Jericho wanted to show fans and Shawn that HBK had been surpassed. Jericho felt that he'd been compared to Shawn quite a lot during the early days of his career, but Chris wanted to become the first Chris Jericho and not the next Shawn Michaels. This story gets weaved into the match as Jericho shows he's just as athletic as Michaels is, while Shawn relies on Jericho making mistakes and being overconfident. And honestly, I consider this one of Shawn's greatest ever matches at WrestleMania. The SummerSlam 2002 match proved that Shawn could still go. The WrestleMania 19 match showed that Shawn could still go at a very high level. When HBK won the belt in 1996, he was a white meat babyface to an almost obnoxious and annoying level. Everyone knew Shawn was good, but he was also being forced down people's throats quite a bit, and a lot of that has to do with Vince McMahon's overbearing commentary and the fact that Vince would act like Shawn's the WWF savior at a time when WCW was completely destroying the company on a weekly basis. Shawn felt he had to shed away some of that babyface nonsense and show a side to him that was more vicious and more violent, opponent. And there was no other man on the WWF roster capable of bringing this out of Shawn than Mick Foley. Mankind was unhinged, he was unpredictable, he had a brutal style that his opponent struggled to overcome, so he made the perfect opponent for Shawn at a time when HBK needed to come across a bit more aggressive. These two beat the crap out of each other during this match, and we get to see Shawn somewhat dismissing his usual offense in favour of stiff punches, stiff kicks, and a generally more urgent ring style. The story gets told by Shawn becoming a different performer right here just so he can overcome this deranged lunatic. The finish isn't good. There's a lot of interference that sees Michaels come out on top after a DQ victory, but the match itself is insanely good, and a lot of credit has to go to Mick Foley right here. There was no other man who could take this kind of punishment in the WWF during 1996. Shawn Michaels and John Cena had a main event match at WrestleMania 23, a match that reportedly Shawn was deeply disappointed with due to his opponent's overall lack of awareness and his ability to sell. The two would make up for this though when they faced each other in London, England on the April 23, 2007 episode of Monday Night Raw. An unprecedented 55 minutes were put aside for this matchup, something you just don't see on the WWE's weekly flagship TV show, so fans were not only getting to see what I consider a much better match in comparison to their WrestleMania encounter, but they were also seeing it for free on weekly television. I do wish sometimes that this Raw match was the one that happened at WrestleMania. Cena must have listened very carefully to the advice he received because he's a much better performer here than what he was at WrestleMania. Shawn, meanwhile, bumps all over the place while also delivering that fast-paced and unmistakable HBK offense in a match that hardly slows down even though it's close to 1 hour in length. And I rank this up there as one of the best Monday Night Raw matches that ever aired on television. I'll admit, I never was a big John Cena fan, and no one can watch this match while thinking Cena was a better performer than Michaels, but John did prove that he belonged inside the ring with HBK on this episode of Raw. It was unpredictable, the offense picked up in all the right places, Cena looked great, HBK was having the time of his life. If you haven't seen this one, then go out of your way to watch it, trust me. The Shawn Michaels vs Razor Ramon ladder match at WrestleMania 10 inspired future performers. That's how big of a deal it was. The Hardy Boys in particular talked about watching this match over and over again and being able to call spots from the match when training to become pro wrestlers themselves, and the match itself laid the groundwork for future WrestleMania encounters that also included the use of a ladder. It's a trend-setting match, a trailblazing match that may have been surpassed in the years that followed, but it's still incredibly fun to watch today. It wasn't the first WWF ladder match either, but it was definitely the one that most people saw all those years ago. And when you watch it for the first time, you're just sitting on the edge of your seat wondering what these guys are going to do next with that ladder. I've said this before, but I think it's an incredible disservice to Scott Hall when folks say Shawn had a match with the ladder at Mania 10. I think it was Ric Flair who first said this, and hey, Flair knows more about this stuff than I do for sure, but I always thought Razor worked just as hard as Shawn did on this night. Yeah, Shawn did more flashy stuff while utilising the ladder, but Razor took some serious bumps here too, and he showed no fear at all. Still, it's an all-time classic right here, and it's a match that showed everyone that Shawn Michaels was ready for the big time. By the time Shawn Michaels met Chris Jericho at No Mercy 2008, the ladder match had evolved. While it could be argued that old ladder matches had more logic to them in terms of using the ladder at the most opportune times, now it was all about high-flying moves, daredevil stunts, and spectacular bumps that viewers could feel at home. In a way, Jericho and Michaels brought the ladder match back to basics at No Mercy 2008, but they compensated for this by making their main event encounter as violent and brutal as possible. The storyline they had going into this one was personal, so it only made sense that both men would use the ladder as a weapon more so than a platform for performing dazzling aerial attacks and whatnot. That doesn't mean this match isn't without that kind of high-octane offense that folks at the time had become accustomed to in ladder matches, but there's a kind of old-school feeling to this encounter that I enjoy a lot, plus it's got a pretty dramatic ending that would see HBK come up short this time around. Another match that Shawn Michaels lost, but a match that highlights the complexity of Michaels as both a performer and a human being. When it was time for Shawn's first WWF title reign to come to an end, a lot of fans were already tired of seeing him. HBK had a string of good pay-per-view matches ever since winning the WWF belt, but during that reign, fans were getting more and more behind the anti-heroes and villains of pro wrestling. The NWO was the coolest thing ever over on WCW television. People were starting to pay closer attention to guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin on Raw every week. And while all this is going on, you still had Vince McMahon going crazy on commentary about how Shawn Michaels could do no wrong and how Shawn was the most charismatic and flamboyant superstar of all time. It just didn't gel with what was going on in the real world. Shawn was originally supposed to drop the belt to Vader, but that didn't work out thanks to HBK throwing a hissy fit. So Psycho Sid was given the honour and the big man defeated Shawn at Survivor Series 96. In Madison Square Garden that night, fans booed Shawn Michaels. Shawn looked a little defeated before the bell even rung, but still HBK acknowledged the harsh reception he got and he played up to it too while making sure not to be all out defiant. It's interesting to watch because Shawn really did feel like he had let the company down during this time period, and he felt like he was carrying the whole company on his back only to fail as WWF champion. Anyone can look back now and see it didn't matter who held the belt during this time period. WCW was on fire and the stuff happening on Nitro was way more exciting in comparison to the WWF's tired old formula. But witnessing this downfall happening in the ring while Shawn still puts on a great match makes for a very intriguing main event. Almost like HBK's title reign is the first real casualty of the Monday Night Wars. Don't go into this one blind though, watch a few episodes of Raw and Nitro in the run-up to Survivor Series and understand where both companies were at the time. You'll get way more out of this main event after doing a bit of research. Kurt Angle vs Shawn Michaels was once considered a dream match. Expectations were high when these two squared off at WrestleMania 21, and to the surprise of no one, these two legends of pro wrestling stole the show. Going into the match, Kurt wanted to prove that anything Shawn could do, he could do better. But at the start of their WrestleMania match, it was HBK proving that he could do whatever Kurt could do when Michaels began mat wrestling with the Olympic gold medalist. It doesn't take long for the match to break down though, and you can feel the tension in and around the ring as things progressively heat up, and it's one of those matches that keeps building and building until something has to give. You can easily imagine either man getting the win, and it becomes more and more unpredictable with each passing moment. This one is a masterclass in match pacing. I don't know what it's like to be in that ring, but as a fan watching at home, I only know that each passing second of this match pushes you further and further to the edge of your seat. It's SmackDown vs Raw, Legend vs Legend, a bout that shows the art of pro wrestling, and when all was said and done, Shawn couldn't overcome Angle as the Heartbreak Kid tapped out to the ankle lock. Even the final ankle lock was seriously dramatic. So, what does Shawn, Diesel, Razor, and the 1-2-3 Kid all have in common? You know the answer. It's been said by Click Detractors that these four men, along with Triple H, wanted to rule the WWF and only work with each other while pushing everyone else to the side. And while that does sound like a horrible business plan, you kinda second guess things when you see these guys working against each other. This match originally aired on the second episode of Action Zone, a Saturday morning WWF program that would eventually become Livewire in the United States, but it was such a good match that WWF decided to release the whole thing unedited on their Slamfest 95 VHS tape. As soon as the bell rings, it's all action, and you can tell how well these men know each other. It's extremely fast paced from the get-go, and when things settle down, everybody bumps like crazy for each other. You can tell that each member of the clique wanted to make other members look as good as possible. And you know, as bad as this whole clique thing was, you do always get good matches from guys who are good friends with each other backstage. This match completely proves that point. There are a few surprises here too, such as Razor being the babyface who needs to get out of the ring and Kid being the one getting the hot tag to clean house. You also get a 1994 Diesel who plays his role perfectly, and he actually comes across really well with all this admittedly better talent around him. And you've got a white hot crowd who eats up every moment of the match. One of the things I always remember about this one though is the fact that the referee counts to 3 on more than one occasion, but the match continues on. I'd actually include this match if I ever made a video about bad officiating, but still the match itself is fantastic, and it proves that even though the Clique were disliked backstage by their peers, they were still premier performers inside the ring. Keep in mind when watching this one that this is 1994. The mullets kinda give it away, I know, but you didn't see tag matches like this during this particular era of WWF. I'll end it with The Undertaker vs Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, probably my favourite HBK match of all time. Not much I can say here that hasn't been said already. Two of the WWE's most enduring superstars going at it and showing the young cats of the company how to put on a classic. Both Shawn and Taker went into this match with a chip on their shoulder. They weren't too happy with being placed in the middle of the WrestleMania card, so they went out there to prove a point, and what they ended up doing was creating arguably the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. The false finishes in this one got me hook, line and sinker. Seeing HBK kick out of The Undertaker's finishers made it feel like he was really going to end the streak, and seeing The Undertaker fall to sweet chin music made fans anticipate the legendary WrestleMania win record coming to an end because, well, at the time, it felt like Shawn could be the man who ends the most famous streak in pro wrestling. In the end, Shawn couldn't do it. He goes for a moonsault, but he gets caught out for one more tombstone piledriver. The only thing you shouldn't do is listen to idiots like me talk about the match in a YouTube video. Go and watch it for yourself and be prepared to watch it over and over again because it really was that good. So many matches have been left off this video. Actually, a ridiculous amount of matches have been left off this video, and those include the Flair match at WrestleMania, the Diesel match at Good Friends Better Enemies, Shawn vs Triple H vs Chris Benoit, Shawn vs Rey Mysterio, the first Elimination Chamber match, Shawn vs Bret at Survivor Series 1992. Let me know your favourites in the comments, and remember to include why you enjoy those matches. Voting is going to open up again soon for Best of the Best episode 6, so if you want to help decide who gets covered next, head over to my Patreon page and cast your vote. You can also suggest wrestlers to be included in the poll. Thanks for watching guys, I do appreciate it, and please take care.
Boy, toy.